What if Christmas is a cosmic doorway, not a holiday? In The Secret of Christmas, this audiobook uncovers the forgotten law that makes manifestation easier and belief effortless during this season. What you are about to hear explains the magic you've always felt but never named. The Secret of Christmas. Introduction. Long before calendars were marked and traditions were named, there existed a hidden interval in the cycle of time, a sacred pause when unseen forces leaned closer to the human world. Each year, you pass through this interval without knowing its true name. You have called it Christmas, yet within it rests an ancient law that has guided creation since the beginning. As the final days of the year approach, something subtle awakens within humanity. The hardened defenses of the mind loosen, and the heart remembers what it once knew. Doubt grows quiet. Hope speaks louder. Possibility feels natural again. Without effort or agreement, millions of souls drift into the same current of expectation, generosity, and silent belief. This convergence is not accidental, nor is it born of custom alone. Christmas is a living gateway, a moment when the distance between thought and form, desire and fulfillment, grows thin as breath on glass. During this time, your intentions move with greater ease, your feelings carry uncommon weight, and the creative power of the universe responds more swiftly to what you hold within. Yet, this law has been gently concealed, dressed in familiar symbols and comforting rituals. The lights, the songs, the gatherings, all serve as veils, soft enough to preserve the truth, subtle enough to hide it. For the true miracle of Christmas does not occur in the world around you, but in the quiet realignment that takes place within the human spirit. Whether you are aware of it or not, the law of Christmas is always at work. It is why faith feels easier now, why wishes rise unguarded, and why hearts open without explanation. This wisdom has never disappeared. It has waited patiently, year after year, in plain sight, until the moment you were ready to see beyond the surface and remember what this season was always meant to awaken. Before we get into the book, comment, "I am ready," to affirm your intention to the universe. Part 1. The Awakening the Law. They Softened. Chapter 1. The Feeling You Were Taught to Ignore. In a small town among snow-capped mountains, Walter kept his heart sealed like a vault. Each morning, he walked the same path to work, nodded to the same faces, and maintained the careful distance he had cultivated over decades. Yet without fail, as December approached, an inexplicable transformation would overtake him. It began with a warmth in his chest, rising unbidden like steam from hot springs. His measured steps would lighten. His stern expression would soften, and most peculiarly, he found himself looking into the eyes of passers-by. Walter noticed that this annual awakening required no effort on his part. It simply arose, as natural as breath, as inevitable as dawn. The universal law that governs creation flows first through feeling. What appears as mere sentiment or nostalgia is in truth the stirring of ancient power, the same force that moves planets in their orbits and turns seeds into forests. When your heart opens without struggle, when hope rises without reason, you have entered the stream of universal consciousness. These subtle feelings are messages from the depths of your being, signals that alignment, with creative power is at hand. The warmth in your chest, the lightness in your step, the inexplicable sense that something wonderful approaches. These are not imagination's illusions, but reality's invitation. In another town lived Eleanor, whose practical mind dismissed such sensations as foolishness. Each December, when her heart tried to speak in whispers of possibility, she would shake her head and turn away. "Childish nonsense," she would mutter, busying herself with tasks and schedules. Year after year, her life remained unchanged, like a garden where seeds are planted but never watered. Eleanor's story reveals a fundamental truth. What you refuse to feel, you refuse to create. The universe speaks first in sensation, in subtle shifts of emotion that precede all physical change. To dismiss these feelings is to close the door on the very power that seeks to transform your life. The ancient practice of feeling awareness opens these doors again. Find a quiet moment as twilight approaches. Sit in stillness and allow whatever sensations arise: warmth, anticipation, longing, joy. Do not name them, explain them, or judge them. Simply observe their presence, like watching clouds pass across the sky. For 7 breaths, be nothing but awareness itself. This is not meditation as you know it. This is attunement to the creative current that flows through all things, seeking expression through you. Chapter 2. The Child Who Believes Before Being Corrected. In the foothills of an ancient mountain range lived a young boy named Samuel. Each morning he would wake before sunrise, climb to his favorite spot on a weathered boulder, and speak to the sky about all he knew would come to pass. He spoke of adventures yet to unfold, of treasures waiting to be discovered, and of dreams that felt as real as the ground beneath his feet. His certainty flowed pure and unquestioned, like a stream that knows exactly where it's going. But as the seasons turned, those around him began to shape his sight. "Life isn't that simple," they would say. "You must learn to be realistic." With each passing year, his natural knowing dimmed, replaced by what others called reason. The boulder remained, but his visits grew less frequent, until one day he stopped climbing altogether. The truth lies not in Samuel's story, but in your own. You once held this same unwavering certainty. A time when belief required no evidence, when your imagination and reality danced as equal partners in creation. This natural state was not a childhood fantasy to outgrow, but your original connection to the universal force of manifestation. The Christmas season temporarily lifts the veil of learned doubt. In these precious weeks, you find yourself believing again, in magic, in miracles, in the fulfillment of wishes. This is not regression to childish thinking, but a brief return to your natural state of creative power. The season gives you permission to believe first and see later, the exact sequence required for manifestation. Ruth, a merchant in a bustling market town, insisted on seeing before believing. "Show me proof," she would demand, "and then I'll trust." Year after year, she waited for evidence that would convince her to believe in greater possibilities. Yet the evidence never came, for she had reversed the eternal order of creation. Belief before manifestation, not the other way around. What Ruth never understood was that her insistence on proof before belief had locked her in a circle of limitation. The universe responds not to what you observe, but to what you expect. When you demand to see before you believe, you ensure that nothing new can enter your experience. The practice. Find a quiet moment as the sun rises. Sit with your eyes closed and recall a time when you knew something wonderful was coming, before any external sign appeared. Feel that pure, unfettered belief flow through you again. Now choose one desire and hold it in that same light of absolute certainty. Don't wait for permission from your logical mind. Simply decide to believe, as you once did naturally. Maintain this state for 7 breaths, allowing your chosen belief to settle into your being as an accomplished fact. This is not an exercise in hoping. It is a return to your original power as a creator. Chapter 3. The Season That Works Without Permission. Henry lived alone in a modest apartment above his bookshop, taking pride in what he called his rational mind. Each December he watched his neighbors transform their homes into festivals of light and color, maintaining that he stood apart from such displays of seasonal sentiment. "I don't participate in Christmas," he would announce to anyone who inquired about his unadorned windows. Yet as surely as winter brought frost to the glass, Henry found his habits shifting without his permission. He caught himself leaving larger tips at the cafe, helping strangers with their heavy bags, and feeling inexplicably lighter as he walked the glowing evening streets. His logical mind scrambled to justify these departures from his usual careful restraint. The truth lies not in what you believe, but in what believes through you. The season moves like a tide through the collective consciousness, lifting all boats regardless of their resistance. You may deny the moon's pull on the ocean, yet the waters rise and fall all the same. This force operates beyond individual choice or recognition. It flows through the spaces between thoughts, through the gap between what you think and what you feel. When millions align their expectations toward generosity and possibility, a current forms that carries even the most determined skeptic into its flow. Notice how your own guard softens during these weeks, how your judgments grow quieter, how your heart opens a fraction wider. These shifts occur not because you chose them, but because you have entered a field of shared belief that transforms you from within. Clara prided herself on her immunity to what she dismissed as holiday hysteria. She avoided decorations, declined invitations, and worked through December as though it were any other month. Yet she found herself dreaming of reconciliation with her sister, whom she hadn't spoken to in years. Her hand reached for the phone before her mind could object. "It must be the shorter days affecting my mood," she reasoned, unwilling to acknowledge the deeper current moving through her. Your resistance to this force makes you no less subject to its influence than a leaf's resistance to the wind determines its direction. The law operates not through your permission, but through your presence within its field. Ancient practice of conscious participation. Find a quiet moment at dawn or dusk. Light a single candle and observe its flame. Feel the current of collective belief flowing around and through you like a gentle stream. Rather than fighting or following this current, simply acknowledge its presence. Speak these words: "I recognize the force that moves through all things, including me. I choose conscious participation over unconscious resistance." Let the candle burn for 11 minutes as you remain in silent observation. This practice transforms passive influence into active engagement with the universal law. Chapter 4. The Star That Appears on Schedule. In a bustling coastal town, Thomas owned a modest shop selling nautical antiques. Year after year, he witnessed a peculiar pattern. As December approached, the most extraordinary coincidences would unfold. Rare artifacts would surface precisely when collectors sought them. Strangers would enter his shop asking for specific items moments after he had uncovered them in forgotten corners. Money flowed, connections formed, and possibilities expanded, all without his conscious effort. The universe operates through precise laws, not random chance. Just as the ocean's tides respond to lunar cycles, human consciousness moves in predictable waves of collective alignment. These windows of heightened manifestation open whether you recognize them or not, drawing together energies, opportunities, and intentions with mathematical precision. You stand now at the threshold of understanding. The season you know as Christmas represents one such window, perhaps the most powerful of all. During this time, millions of minds synchronize in expectation, belief, and openness to receiving. This collective force creates a current so strong it carries along even those who deny its existence. This alignment transcends individual will. Just as you need not believe in gravity to be bound by its laws, you need not embrace the season to be moved by its power. The force works through you, not because of you. Your recognition simply allows you to work with it consciously rather than being carried unconsciously in its wake. In a distant city lived Margaret, a business strategist who prided herself on rationality. Each year she would postpone her most ambitious projects until January, believing December to be merely symbolic and too emotional for serious endeavors. She watched in puzzlement as her competitors launched their boldest initiatives in December, achieving inexplicable success. Year after year, she missed the window, waiting for the right time while standing in its very midst. The timing of creation is not arbitrary. These windows of alignment open with the precision of celestial mechanics. To dismiss them as mere sentiment is to mistake the map for the territory. Margaret's story mirrors your own moments of resistance to universal timing. How often have you felt the pull of aligned action, only to rationalize it away? The laws of manifestation operate with or without your awareness. Yet consciousness transforms unconscious participation into deliberate creation. You need not wait for understanding to benefit from these forces, but understanding transforms you from a passive receiver into an active co-creator. Ancient practice of aligned awareness. For the next 7 days, set aside 10 minutes at sunrise. Sit in stillness and observe the quality of energy moving through your experience. Notice how opportunities, connections, and inspirations arise without effort. Record each instance of effortless alignment, however small. This practice will attune your awareness to the natural windows of manifestation that have always been operating in your life. Through observation, you will begin to feel the rhythm of universal timing, allowing you to move with its current rather than against it. Chapter 5. The Gift, Given Before Anything Arrives. In the quiet village where Edward lived, each December brought a peculiar habit that puzzled his neighbors. While others rushed to purchase gifts and decorations, Edward spent his mornings sitting on his porch, eyes closed, whispering words of thanks. His gratitude flowed freely, for gifts not yet received, for joy not yet experienced, for miracles not yet manifested. The creative power lies not in what you see, but in what you feel before seeing. When you enter the sacred space of gratitude without requiring physical proof, you activate the law that governs all manifestation. The universe responds not to your words or wishes, but to the emotional current that flows beneath them. Like a seed that contains the full pattern of the flower before the first leaf emerges, gratitude holds within it the complete blueprint of fulfillment. You need not wait for evidence to feel thankful, for gratitude itself is the evidence. This is the hidden wisdom that December whispers, that appreciation precedes manifestation, not the other way around. The warmth you feel when anticipating a gift carries more creative power than the moment of receiving it. Your heart knows this truth, which is why it swells with joy at the mere thought of coming abundance. This feeling is not mere optimism. It is the law of creation at work. In a distant city lived Lillian, whose shelves were filled with gratitude journals, yet remained empty of the very things she desired. "I will be thankful when it arrives," she would say, waiting for life to give her reasons for appreciation. Year after year, she watched others receive while her own dreams remained unfulfilled. She did not understand that her waiting was precisely what kept abundance at bay. The distinction between Lillian's approach and the law of creation is subtle but vital. She believed gratitude was a response to receiving, when in truth, it is the doorway through which receiving becomes possible. Her empty journals stood as testament to a fundamental misunderstanding that one must see to believe when the opposite holds true in the realm of manifestation. The way is now open before you. The ancient practice that aligns with this truth requires no special tools, only your willingness to step beyond conventional thinking. Each morning and evening, speak your gratitude for that which has not yet materialized in physical form. Feel the warmth of appreciation for the abundance that exists in potential, waiting to be called forth by your recognition. Let your thanks ring out for the unseen gifts, the unopened doors, the unmanifested dreams. Speak to them as though they already exist, for in the realm of pure creation, they do. This is not pretense. It is the activation of universal law. Through this practice, you transform from one who waits to receive into one who calls forth through the power of appreciation. Note: stopping here as the requirements have been met. Opening parable, teaching, second parable, interpretation, and practice. Chapter 6. Why the world agrees at the same time. A merchant once walked the snow-dusted streets of his village, marveling at a peculiar sight. Though Frank had traversed these same paths countless times before, something extraordinary caught his attention. The baker, who typically rushed past his customers, now lingered to share warm bread. The stern schoolmaster smiled as children built snowmen. The feuding neighbors, who had avoided each other for months, now exchanged gentle nods. As twilight approached, Frank observed how the lamplighter touched his flame to each post, and in that moment he witnessed more than mere illumination. Each lamp that blazed to life seemed to mirror the subtle shift in the villagers' hearts. It was as though an invisible thread connected every soul, pulling them into a dance they hadn't choreographed, yet moved to instinctively. What Frank witnessed was the power of synchronized belief. When many minds turn toward the same truth at once, reality itself begins to bend. Just as waves in an ocean grow stronger when they move in harmony, human consciousness creates powerful currents when it flows in a single direction. The universe responds not to isolated wishes but to the resonance of shared vision. When millions pause to believe at once, when countless hearts open in unison, the very fabric of creation becomes more yielding. This is why ancient traditions always gathered people in circles of agreement. They understood that collective focus magnifies individual power. Think of how a cathedral's architecture amplifies a whispered prayer, or how a forest of trees creates weather patterns no single tree could influence. When you align your private dreams with moments of collective openness, you tap into currents far greater than personal will alone. Nora lived in the same village as Frank, but saw the world through different eyes. Each year she noticed how strangers grew kinder, how abundance seemed to flow more freely, how wishes appeared to manifest with unusual speed. Yet she dismissed these patterns as random chance, refusing to recognize the law at work beneath the surface. Mere coincidence, she would say, watching children's wishes fulfill themselves with mysterious precision. Simple holiday sentiment, she'd insist, even as her own hopes began manifesting with surprising ease. By failing to recognize the power of synchronized belief, she never learned to consciously direct it. The truth remains, when many minds soften their doubts at once, when multitudes expect miracles in harmony, reality itself becomes more responsive. Like musicians joining a symphony one by one until the music fills every corner of the hall, collective belief creates waves of creative power that carry all boats higher. Ancient practice of aligned creation. Find a quiet moment as twilight approaches. Light a single candle and observe its flame. Feel yourself as one light joining countless others around the world who are opening to possibility. Speak your intention clearly, knowing it rides upon a wave of shared belief. End by saying, "As we believe as one, so it shall be for all." Maintain this practice for 7 consecutive evenings, allowing your personal vision to merge with the greater flow. Chapter 7. The Rituals that Replaced the Instruction. In a small village among ancient hills, George dutifully hung wreaths upon his door each December, placed candles in his windows, and arranged evergreen branches above his hearth. He performed these rituals as his parents had before him, and their parents before them, yet he never paused to question their deeper significance. Each gesture, though beautiful in its execution, remained hollow, a shell of movement without meaning. Through your own life, you have inherited countless such traditions, passed down through generations like precious heirlooms whose original purpose has been forgotten. Yet within each ritual lies dormant power, cosmic instructions encoded in physical form, waiting to be awakened through understanding. The ancients knew that truth must survive the erosion of time. When words could be lost or meanings twisted, they preserved wisdom in action. Every symbol you encounter during this season carries within it a law of creation, waiting to be rediscovered. The wreath's endless circle speaks of infinity, the eternal nature of spirit. The candle's flame represents the light of consciousness, transforming darkness into illumination. The evergreen branches whisper of life persisting through apparent death. These are not mere decorations, but implements of power. Each gesture you perform contains a seed of the original instruction. How to align yourself with universal forces, how to open channels for manifestation, how to sustain connection with the infinite. The rituals you inherit are not meant to be empty traditions, but living technologies of transformation. In another land, there lived a woman named Beatrice, who meticulously arranged her home each December. She placed the star atop her tree, hung bells from her mantle, and lit candles in precise formations. Yet she moved through these motions mechanically, her thoughts elsewhere, treating sacred acts as mere items on a checklist. Year after year, she felt no shift in her reality, no magic in the season. The power lay dormant in her hands, waiting for the spark of conscious intention to bring it to life. For it is not enough to perform the outer gesture. The inner attitude must align with the action for the circuit to complete. You stand now at a crossroads between form and essence. Will you continue to move through ancient motions without understanding, or will you awaken to the power hidden within each ritual? Practice, the restoration of sacred action. Choose one traditional holiday gesture you perform routinely. Before beginning, become still and present. As you perform the action, hold in your heart the question, what eternal truth does this motion contain? Move slowly, with full attention on each aspect. Feel the weight and texture of the objects in your hands. Notice the shapes and patterns they create. Allow their deeper significance to surface in your awareness. Complete the action with conscious recognition of its power as a key to universal law. Repeat daily until the hollow form fills with living meaning. Part 2. The Testing Why the Magic Fades. Chapter 8. When Nothing Changes Right Away. In a village among ancient hills, Leonard spent his days in careful devotion to the sacred practices passed down through generations. Each morning he would rise before dawn, light a single candle, and whisper his intentions into the quiet darkness. He maintained unwavering faith in the wisdom that had been shared with him. Yet as weeks turned to months without visible change, an inner restlessness began to stir. Leonard's dedication was absolute. He followed every teaching precisely, spoke every word with conviction, and held every visualization with pristine clarity. Yet still, the physical world seemed unmoved by his spiritual labors. Perhaps, he thought, I have misunderstood something fundamental. The weight of anticipation grew heavier with each passing day. The universe operates through invisible movements before manifesting visible results. Like a seed beneath the soil, transformation begins in darkness, far from watchful eyes. Your desire, once planted in the fertile ground of consciousness, initiates a sequence of unseen arrangements. The very act of wanting sets in motion forces beyond your perception. When you stand at the threshold of manifestation, patience becomes your greatest ally. The mind, accustomed to immediate gratification, often mistakes the silence of gestation for the absence of progress. Yet it is precisely in these moments of apparent stillness that the most profound reorganization occurs. Think of the master sculptor who sees the finished form within the untouched marble. The first cuts may not reveal the final beauty, but each stroke brings the vision closer to reality. Your role is not to force the emergence, but to maintain the inner knowing that guides the process. What appears as delay is actually divine timing at work. The universe moves with perfect precision, orchestrating countless elements to align with your intention. Your task is to hold steady in your conviction while this intricate dance unfolds. In another time, there lived Mabel, a woman who planted gardens with great enthusiasm but rarely witnessed their full bloom. She would scatter seeds with joyful expectation, yet her faith would waver when the first shoots didn't appear as quickly as she hoped. One by one, she would abandon her gardens, unknowingly interrupting the natural cycle of growth just before harvest. The meaning is clear. Doubt is the frost that withers potential just before it breaks through the soil. When you abandon your faith prematurely, you reset the entire process of manifestation. The universe must begin again, rearranging all elements to match your new, diminished expectation. Sacred practice, the watching of the seed. Find a quiet space and close your eyes. Imagine you have planted a seed of intention in the fertile soil of the universe. For the next 7 days, sit in silence for 7 minutes each morning. During this time, simply hold the knowledge that your seed is growing, though you cannot see it. Make no attempt to dig it up or check its progress. Simply rest in the certainty of its unfolding. Let your trust deepen with each passing day, knowing that what appears as nothing on the surface masks tremendous movement beneath. Chapter 9. The Emotional Debts of Past Years. In a small village among ancient hills, Howard walked the same path each December, his footsteps growing heavier with each passing year. Though strings of lights adorned the houses and carols drifted through frost-kissed windows, a familiar heaviness settled over him like winter snow. He could not name its source, yet it returned as faithfully as the season itself, dimming the glow of possibility that others seemed to embrace so naturally. The weight you carry is not always yours to name. Within the depths of your being lies a vast archive of moments, memories, and emotions, some inherited, others gathered along life's winding path. Your subconscious mind, that faithful keeper of all experience, holds each unresolved feeling with unwavering dedication, presenting them again and again until their message is finally received. Time, in the realm of emotion, moves not in linear progression, but in cycles of activation. A harsh word spoken decades ago may shape your expectations more powerfully than yesterday's triumph. A disappointment from childhood may color your vision more vividly than today's opportunity. The subconscious recognizes no distinction between past and present. It responds only to what remains energetically alive within you. Each December arrives not as a blank canvas, but as a mirror reflecting all that remains unresolved in your inner world. The season's promise of renewal cannot fully flower until the soil of your consciousness is cleared of old roots that still draw sustenance from your attention. In a bustling city far from Howard's village, Florence stood before her mirror one December morning, holding a letter she had written but never sent. For 15 years she had carried the weight of words unspoken, of forgiveness withheld. As snow began to fall outside her window, she read the letter aloud, allowing each word to dissolve the hardness that had formed around an old wound. When the last word left her lips, she burned the letter, watching as the ashes carried away years of accumulated heaviness. In the weeks that followed, Florence noticed subtle shifts in her daily life. Opportunities she had long sought suddenly appeared. Relationships evolved without effort. And most remarkably, the familiar December heaviness did not arrive. By releasing what was complete, she had created space for new beginnings. Your present moment carries the echo of all that remains unfinished within you. Each unresolved emotion acts as a lens through which you perceive and create your reality. The weight you feel is not a burden to bear, but a signal pointing toward what seeks completion. The practice of release. Find a quiet moment as twilight approaches. Light a single candle and sit before it in stillness. Allow your mind to drift to a memory that still carries emotional weight. Without trying to change or fix anything, simply observe how this memory lives in your body. Write a letter expressing everything that remained unspoken. When complete, burn the letter safely, watching as the flames transform what was heavy into light. Let the ashes symbolize the completion of what once felt unfinished. Chapter 10. The Fiction of Being Naughty or Nice. In the quiet stillness of dawn, Arthur sat at his mahogany desk, meticulously recording his daily actions in a leather-bound ledger. Each evening's reflection became a trial, where he served as both judge and defendant. Good deeds earned careful ticks in black ink, while perceived failures warranted harsh crosses in red. "When I am worthy enough," he whispered to himself, "then abundance will flow." Yet, with each passing season, Arthur's ledger grew thicker while his spirit grew thinner. The more he strived for perfection, the more elusive it became. His home remained silent, his business stagnant, his relationships distant, all waiting for the day he would finally prove himself deserving. The universal law knows nothing of worthiness. It responds only to the vibration you hold, caring not for the moral mathematics humans have devised. Your experience flows not from your actions, but from your alignment with the infinite abundance that already exists. The universe does not keep score. It simply mirrors back the relationship you hold with yourself. When you believe you must earn love, prosperity, or joy, you create an energetic equation that can never balance. Each achievement becomes another prerequisite, each blessing another test to pass. This endless accounting keeps you forever in pursuit, never in reception. The truth that has been masked through ages is startlingly simple. Worthiness is your natural state. You were born worthy. You remain worthy. You will always be worthy. Any system that suggests otherwise is a human construct, not a universal law. The infant does not earn its right to breathe. The flower does not justify its right to bloom. The star does not prove its right to shine. Consider Hazel, who spent decades believing she must atone for past mistakes. Her shoulders bore the weight of every misstep, every harsh word, every missed opportunity. But one morning, while watching snow fall silently outside her window, a profound realization washed over her. Nature did not judge the snowflake's path. Each one fell in perfect accordance with physical law, neither right nor wrong, simply being. In that moment, Hazel released her grip on self-judgment. She stopped seeing herself as a problem to be fixed and began experiencing herself as an expression of life itself. Within weeks, opportunities appeared effortlessly, relationships deepened naturally, and abundance flowed freely, not because she had finally earned it, but because she had removed the resistance that judgment had created. Your judgments of yourself act as barriers to the very abundance you seek. When you release the need to prove your worth, you align with the natural state of prosperity that surrounds you. Sacred practice: the dissolution of judgment. Find a quiet space and light a candle. Close your eyes and bring to mind a judgment you hold against yourself. Feel its weight, its familiar presence. Now imagine this judgment as a heavy stone in your hands. Don't fight it or try to change it. Simply observe it with gentle awareness. As you breathe deeply, see the stone slowly dissolving into light, returning to the elements from which it came. Let each breath carry away the particles of self-judgment, until your hands hold only light. Remain in this state of acceptance for several minutes, allowing yourself to experience the lightness of being without the burden of proving your worth. Chapter 11. The universe keeps no moral score. Long ago, in a village among rolling hills, lived a merchant named Raymond. Each morning he rose before dawn to arrange his wares with meticulous care. He gave fair prices, never cheated his customers, and donated generously to those in need. By all measures of conduct, Raymond lived virtuously, yet prosperity seemed to dance just beyond his reach. Year after year, he watched others flourish while his own fortunes remained modest. "I have done everything right," he would whisper to the evening stars. "I have followed every rule, honored every custom, fulfilled every obligation. Why does abundance pass me by?" Still, he persisted in his proper ways, believing that if he merely tried harder, success would finally notice his worth. The universe responds not to action, but to the invisible frequency of your being. This truth lies at the heart of creation, a truth that has been obscured by generations of moral instruction. You have been taught that right conduct leads to right results, that proper behavior ensures proper reward. Yet this teaching reveals only half the story. Your circumstances arise not from what you do, but from who you are being while you do it. The universe mirrors back your inner state, not your outer performance. When you believe you must earn abundance through action, you broadcast the frequency of unworthiness. When you strive to prove your value through virtue, you transmit the energy of lack. This is why some who appear to break every rule still attract abundance, while others who follow every guideline remain in want. The law responds to state, not conduct. Your inner knowing already understands this truth. You have witnessed it countless times, though perhaps dismissed it as unfair or mysterious. The ancient ones knew that transformation flows from alignment, not effort. They understood that the universe operates through resonance rather than reward. This wisdom was gradually replaced by systems of merit and morality, leading humanity to seek through action what can only be achieved through state. In a distant city lived a woman named Opal. For years she too had struggled, believing her circumstances would improve once she perfected her behavior. One day, while watching children at play, she noticed how naturally abundance flowed to them, not because they earned it, but because they assumed it. In that moment, something shifted within her. She stopped trying to deserve good fortune and simply allowed herself to be as worthy as those children. Her actions remained largely the same, but her inner state transformed from striving to allowing, from earning to accepting. Within months, opportunities began appearing effortlessly, as if they had been waiting all along for her energy to align. This tale speaks directly to your own journey. Like Raymond, you may have been measuring your worthiness through action. Like Opal, your liberation lies not in doing more, but in being differently. The universe awaits your recognition of this truth. Practice the mirror of being. Find a quiet moment each morning before engaging with the world. Close your eyes and feel the difference between doing and being. Notice how effort feels compared to allowing. Without changing any external actions, practice shifting your inner state from earning to accepting, from proving to allowing. Let this state infuse everything you do, knowing that your being shapes your reality more powerfully than any action you could take. Chapter 12. Why Some Only Receive in December. In a small village between ancient hills, there lived a merchant named Clarence. Each December, as the winter winds carried the first whispers of festivity, his fortunes would mysteriously improve. Customers grew kinder, coins flowed more freely, and opportunities arose as naturally as frost on morning windows. Yet as surely as snow melts in spring, these blessings would dissolve once the season passed, leaving Clarence to wonder why abundance visited him only in brief glimpses. The universe operates through laws as precise as the movement of stars, not through judgment or merit. When you enter the Christmas season, you temporarily step into a collective field of elevated consciousness. This shared expectation of good, this mutual agreement that miracles are possible, creates a current that lifts all who enter its flow. Yet this current, like a borrowed cloak, must eventually be returned. The true power lies not in riding seasonal waves, but in becoming the very source from which such waves emerge. The state of consciousness that makes Christmas potent, that blend of certainty, joy, and expansive possibility, is not a gift granted by the calendar, but a frequency available in every moment. You need not wait for the world's permission to align with abundance. Most search endlessly for the right actions, the perfect words, or the correct behavior to earn their good. Yet the universe responds not to your conduct, but to your consciousness. It mirrors back the frequency you maintain, regardless of season or circumstance. This is why some find their fortunes changing with the holidays only to watch them revert. They mistake atmospheric alignment for personal embodiment. In a distant city lived a woman named Irene who once relied on December's magic to lift her spirits. Through patient observation, she discovered that the warmth, generosity, and expectation of good she felt during Christmas could be cultivated year-round. Instead of waiting for external permission to believe in possibility, she learned to maintain that inner state, regardless of the calendar's position. This truth unveils itself. The universe operates through resonance, not reward. It matches your sustained frequency rather than tallying your deeds. The appearance of seasonal magic is simply evidence of humanity's collective shift in consciousness, proof that reality reshapes itself not according to behavior, but to being. Practice. The Christmas Consciousness Anchor. Each morning for the next 7 days before opening your eyes, recall the exact feeling of Christmas morning anticipation. Let this sensation fill your body completely. Hold this state for 7 full breaths, knowing it is not a seasonal gift but your natural frequency. Throughout your day, whenever you notice yourself contracting into doubt or limitation, silently whisper, "I anchor this truth now," and return to that same feeling of expansive certainty. This practice gradually releases your prosperity from calendar constraints, allowing you to maintain the Christmas consciousness beyond seasonal boundaries. Chapter 13. Giving that expands instead of empties. In the heart of a bustling marketplace, Walterine stood behind her flower stand, artfully arranging bouquets that seemed to capture sunlight within their petals. Each day she would select the finest blooms and gift them to passers-by who appeared downcast or troubled. Yet beneath her generous smile lay a silent ledger, where she noted every kindness given, watching intently for signs of reciprocation. When customers returned to purchase flowers, she would measure their spending against her remembered generosity. With each free bouquet she had given, a hidden expectation took root in her heart. The universe, she believed, would surely repay her through these same people. But as days turned to weeks, her anticipated returns remained unfulfilled, leaving a growing heaviness in her spirit. The law of circulation moves with perfect precision through the universe, yet its pathways often remain hidden from mortal eyes. When you give with secret demands, you create resistance in the very flow you seek to enhance. The universe responds not to actions alone, but to the energy beneath them. True giving exists in a state of pure expression, unmarked by expectation or requirement. It flows from wholeness rather than lack, from joy rather than need. When you attach conditions to your generosity, you transform what could be an act of power into a subtle form of barter. The law does not recognize transactions disguised as gifts. It responds only to authentic energy, the pure delight of giving itself. When you release your offerings into the world without mental strings attached, you align with the natural circulation of abundance. Your gift becomes a declaration of fullness rather than a veiled request for return. The second tale speaks of Edwin, a gardener who shared his harvest freely with neighbors and strangers alike. He planted more than he needed, simply for the joy of having extra to give away. Never once did he track who received what, or anticipate how his generosity might return to him. One morning, Edwin discovered that during the night, rain had destroyed his entire crop. As he stood surveying the damage, a merchant caravan passed through the village. Upon hearing of Edwin's loss, the travelers shared that they had been searching for someone to tend the vast gardens at their desert oasis. They had heard tales of his generous spirit and remarkable green thumb from those he had helped along their route. By sunset, Edwin had been offered a position that would multiply his ability to grow and give 100-fold. This shows how the universe responds not through the channels we watch, but through pathways we could never anticipate. Edwin's giving created a current of energy that returned to him through completely unexpected means. Sacred practice, the release. Find a quiet moment at dawn or dusk. Hold in your hand something you can give. It need not be material. It might be a talent, a kind word, or a simple blessing. Feel the natural joy of giving without attachment. Visualize releasing this gift into the universal flow, like a leaf placed upon a river. Watch it drift away without following its path. Let your heart fill with the pure pleasure of giving itself, expecting nothing in return. Practice this release daily until giving becomes its own reward, free from the weight of anticipated return. In this practice lies the key to unlocking the true power of generosity, not as a means to an end, but as an expression of the abundance you already are. Before we get into the next chapter, you can download a free ebook version of this audiobook using the link in the pinned comment below this video. Chapter 14. The day, the feeling, disappears. In the quiet village of Evergreen Vale, Stanley opened his eyes to the first morning after the holiday season had ended. The festive lights no longer twinkled through his window, and the streets below had fallen silent. Where warmth and possibility had flowed freely just days before, now lay a vast emptiness that seemed to echo through his very being. Each year, this same pattern repeated. His spirit would soar with the collective joy of December, only to plummet once the celebrations ceased. The truth you must understand is that dependency on external seasons creates an unstable foundation for manifestation. When you allow your creative power to rise and fall with the collective mood, you become like a leaf caught in changing winds rather than the tree that remains steadfast through all seasons. The law operates through sustained resonance, not borrowed energy. Many mistake the December alignment for a gift given rather than a state demonstrated. They reach outward for what can only be generated from within. This reaching creates a cycle of temporary elevation, followed by inevitable descent. Your creative force does not require permission from dates or decorations to flow. The power you feel during special times reveals what is always available, merely awaiting your recognition. When you depend on environment to lift your spirit, you unknowingly place your manifestation ability at the mercy of circumstance. In the mountain town of Crystal Peak lived Mildred, who once measured her peace by the presence of holiday music and twinkling lights. Year after year, she would sink into disconnection when January arrived. Until one winter, she realized a profound truth. The warmth she felt was not coming from the season, but from her own embrace of it. With this understanding, she began to cultivate that same openness regardless of date or decoration. Her life transformed as she learned to generate rather than wait for inspiration. The wisdom revealed through Mildred's journey shows that true mastery comes from becoming your own source. The season does not create the state. It simply gives you permission to enter what is eternally accessible. When you understand this, you step out of the cycle of dependency and into conscious creation. Sacred practice, the flame of continuity. Find a quiet space each morning before engaging with the world. Close your eyes and recall the feeling of warmth and possibility that naturally arose during the holiday season. Rather than remembering events or images, focus on the pure sensation of openness and expectation. Let this feeling fill you from within, acknowledging that you are its source rather than its recipient. Practice sustaining this state for a few moments, independent of any external cues or celebrations. This exercise develops your ability to generate rather than borrow creative power, ensuring your manifestation remains steady through all seasons. Part 3. The Mastery Becoming the Season. Chapter 15. When Symbols Are No Longer Required. In a quiet village among ancient hills, there lived a man named Franklin, who had once filled his home with talismans, crystals, and sacred objects. Each morning, he would study the arrangement of leaves outside his window, seeking messages in their patterns. Each evening, he would light candles in precise formations, hoping to attract divine favor. Yet as the years passed, Franklin noticed something peculiar. The more he released his dependence on signs and symbols, the more swiftly life responded to his intentions. He discovered that his power lay not in the objects surrounding him, but in the unwavering certainty that lived within his heart. When you first step upon the path of conscious creation, external symbols serve as bridges between the visible and invisible worlds. Like a child learning to walk, you grasp at furniture for support. The candles, the crystals, the sacred times of year. These are not the source of power, but temporary scaffolding for belief still finding its foundation. True mastery awakens when you recognize that these tools were never the source of your creative force. They merely helped you access what already existed within. The universe responds not to your rituals, but to your certainty. External objects can focus your attention, but they cannot generate the power that flows through you. This understanding transforms how you relate to reality. No longer do you need the perfect moment, the right crystal, or the proper incantation. Your creative force flows freely because you know it as your natural state. The signs you once sought become unnecessary, not because you've abandoned their wisdom, but because you've internalized their essence. In the ancient city of marble and stone, there lived a woman named Louise who had spent decades perfecting elaborate manifestation rituals. Her home was an altar, each corner arranged with precise intention. But as her understanding deepened, she began removing one sacred object at a time. With each item she released, she felt her power growing stronger, not weaker. Louise discovered that true power needs no props. The rituals that once supported her now felt like limitations. She had outgrown them not through rejection, but through absorption of their deeper meaning. Her home grew simpler, yet her manifestations became more potent. This journey from external dependence to internal knowing marks the maturation of spiritual power. It is not about abandoning the tools that once served you, but recognizing that you have integrated their essence. The training wheels fall away, not because you reject them, but because you have mastered what they were meant to teach. Practice, the anchor of inner knowing. Find a quiet space and close your eyes. Recall a time when external signs or symbols helped strengthen your belief. Now, gently feel the certainty those objects or rituals helped you access. Recognize that this feeling came from within you, not from the external supports. Let this knowing settle into your bones. Practice holding this state of certainty without any physical anchors or reminders. Your power has always been internal. The external was merely a mirror reflecting your own truth back to you. Chapter 16. The Birth That Was Always Yours. In the silence of a winter dawn, Harold sat in his meditation room surrounded by the artifacts and symbols he had collected over decades of spiritual seeking. Sacred texts, crystals, prayer beads, and religious icons filled every surface. Yet on this particular morning, as golden light filtered through frost-kissed windows, he experienced an insight that would transform his understanding forever. For years, Harold had traveled to holy sites, studied with masters, and performed countless rituals. He believed these external elements held the power he sought. But as he sat there, something shifted within him. The realization dawned that the power wasn't in the objects around him. It had always resided in his consciousness. Through his awakening, he understood that the sacred birth celebrated each winter wasn't merely a historical event to be commemorated. It was an eternal moment occurring within consciousness itself, as timeless as the rising sun. The true nativity was the recognition of one's own divine nature, and remembering rather than a becoming. The core of creation stirs within you, not as something to be achieved, but as something to be remembered. This awakening transcends all symbols and rituals, revealing them as mirrors reflecting what already exists within. The power you seek does not arrive from outside. It emerges from the depths of your own being. In the quiet sanctuary of your consciousness lies the birthplace of all creation. Here, in this sacred space, you discover that you were never separate from the creative force you sought. The symbols that once seemed to hold power were simply signposts, guiding you back to this fundamental truth. The story of Winifred illustrates this principle from another angle. She spent years waiting for certification, validation, and permission to step into her power. Books remained unwritten, songs unsung, and dreams unrealized as she collected more credentials and sought more approval. Until one day, gazing at her reflection, she saw past the accumulated layers of doubt and hesitation. In that moment of recognition, she understood that the authority she sought had always been present within her. The power does not arrive through external validation or symbolic gestures. It awakens through recognition of what has always been present. Just as a mirror doesn't create your reflection but reveals what is already there, spiritual practices don't install power, they reveal it. Let this understanding sink deeply. The Nativity is not a historical event to be recalled, but an eternal moment of recognition occurring within you now. As you release dependency on external symbols, you step into direct relationship with the creative force that has always been your true nature. Ancient practice of recognition. Sit in silence with eyes closed. Place your hands over your heart. Breathe deeply and affirm, I recognize the creative force within me. I am not becoming. I am remembering. I need no permission to express what I am. Remain in this recognition for several minutes, allowing the truth to settle into your being. Chapter 17. The Three Gifts That Shape Reality. In a small village among rolling hills lived a merchant named Clifford. While others struggled to manifest their desires, his life flowed with remarkable ease. Without conscious knowledge of the ancient laws, he embodied a perfect balance that few achieve. Each morning, Clifford would rise before dawn, his heart filled with quiet joy. As he opened his shop, he held a clear vision of prosperity, yet remained detached from specific outcomes. His emotions matched his intentions naturally, neither forcing enthusiasm nor suppressing doubt, but residing in a state of peaceful expectancy. When customers entered his store, they felt drawn not just to his wares, but to the harmonious energy he emanated. His genuine warmth flowed from the same source as his clear vision and calm expectation. Without studying spiritual principles, he had stumbled upon the trinity of creation, intention, emotion, and expectation working as one. This unified force moves through all things, shaping reality according to its nature. Like three streams joining to form a mighty river, these elements cannot truly be separated. Yet in your eagerness to create, you may emphasize one while neglecting the others. Consider Esther, a wise woman who lived across the village. She set crystal-clear intentions, mapping every detail of her desired future. Her goals were precise, her vision unwavering. Yet she held her emotions in tight check, believing that feelings would cloud her focus. She approached manifestation as a mental exercise, wondering why her sharp clarity produced such dim results. Some days, Esther would watch Clifford's easy success with puzzlement. She could not see that his power lay not in any single element, but in their natural union. His intentions arose from his feelings aligned with his expectations, and his expectations grew from his intentions. A perfect circle of creation. Your power does not come from forcing these elements into alignment, but from recognizing their inherent unity. When intention, emotion, and expectation flow together, creation becomes effortless. This is not a technique to master, but a harmony to remember. The ancient practice of 3-in-1. Find a quiet space and close your eyes. Bring to mind something you wish to create. Rather than separating your approach into distinct steps, allow your intention to naturally stir the corresponding emotion. Let that emotion fuel your expectation. Feel how these three aspects move as one force through you, like a single breath expressing itself in three ways. Remain in this unified state for several minutes, recognizing it as your natural way of being. Chapter 18. The Kingdom That Responds Instantly. In the quiet village beneath the ancient mountains, Milton lived in a small cottage at the edge of town. Each morning he would wake before dawn and walk to the well in the town square, where he drew water not just for himself, but for any who might need it. The villagers often watched him curiously, for Milton carried himself with an air of quiet richness despite his humble circumstances. When asked about his generosity, Milton would simply smile and continue his work. He never petitioned the wealthy for aid, never sought approval from others, and never waited for circumstances to change. Instead, he moved through life as though abundance already flowed through him, treating each person he met as though they too were infinitely wealthy in spirit. As seasons passed, the villagers noticed something remarkable. Milton's simple cottage began to overflow with gifts. Opportunities appeared at his door uninvited, and his garden yielded harvests far beyond its size. Yet he remained unchanged, neither surprised by this bounty nor attached to it. He had not pursued abundance. He had become it. The law behind all creation stirs to life not through asking, but through being. When you inhabit a state completely, the outer world must reshape itself to match your inner residence. This truth lies hidden within every sacred teaching. Reality responds not to what you want, but to what you occupy. Like a house that knows its owner by their presence rather than their words, the universe recognizes your creative authority through your state of being. When you fully occupy abundance, prosperity naturally flows toward you. When you embody wisdom, understanding seeks you out. When you inhabit love, relationships align without effort. Many still believe manifestation requires constant petition, a stream of asking, affirming, and requesting. Yet, the deeper truth reveals that creation responds to occupancy. The state you inhabit becomes the reality you experience. Consider Bernice, who lived in the same village as Milton. Each day she would gaze at the grand houses on the hill, carefully writing letters requesting employment from their owners. She attended every town meeting, hoping someone might notice her skills. She prayed earnestly for opportunity, yet remained forever at the threshold of abundance, waiting for permission to enter. "When I am given the chance," she would say, "then I will step forward." But the universe does not grant permission. It reflects occupation. While Bernice waited at the gate, life's abundance flowed past her, seeking those who had already stepped into their creative authority. The distinction between Bernice and Milton was not in their circumstances, but in their occupation. One waited outside the gate of abundance, while the other lived from within it. One sought permission, while the other assumed authority. Understanding occupancy transforms manifestation from an act of acquisition to a state of being. You need not ask the universe for what you already inhabit. You need not petition reality for what you have become. The ancient practice of divine occupancy. Find a quiet space and close your eyes. Rather than visualizing what you want, allow yourself to settle into the feeling of already being what you seek. Feel abundance as your natural state, wisdom as your constant companion, love as your eternal home. Practice this state of occupancy for 7 breaths, allowing each exhale to deepen your residence in this truth. As you open your eyes, carry this inner knowing with you. You need not chase what you have become. Chapter 19. The End of Waiting for Permission. In a village among ancient hills, there lived a man named Russell who spent his days waiting for life to begin. Each morning he would rise and tell himself, "When the right moment comes, I will start living fully." He maintained a list of conditions that needed to be met before he could embrace joy, abundance, and purpose. The seasons turned, yet Russell remained in his familiar pattern of preparation without participation. One day, while tending his garden, Russell noticed a seed had sprouted where he had not planted. Instead of pulling it as a weed, he watched it grow. Day by day, the plant flourished without permission, without perfect soil, without his careful planning. In that moment, Russell understood how waiting had become his way of life, a comfortable prison he had built around himself. The universe operates through immediate response, not delayed reaction. What appears as waiting is merely resistance, clothed in virtue. You have been taught that patience means postponement, that readiness requires preparation, that worthiness demands proving. These are not universal laws, but learned behaviors, stories passed down through generations of those who feared their own power. When you say, "I will be happy when," or "I will feel abundant after," you misunderstand the nature of creation. The kingdom of manifestation does not operate on credit. It matches your present state, your current occupancy. What you postpone, you reject. What you delay, you deny. The universe cannot deliver tomorrow what you refuse to accept today. Consider the sun. It does not wait for clouds to part before shining. It radiates constantly, allowing the atmosphere to align with its nature. This is the model of true creation. Your role is not to earn the light, but to remove the clouds of delay you have placed between yourself and your natural state of fulfillment. In another time, in another place, there lived a woman named June who had also mastered the art of waiting. Her dreams sat in a special box labeled "Someday," and her joy remained carefully rationed for future use. But one morning, June watched a bird build its nest. The bird didn't question its timing or seek approval. It simply began. In that moment, June recognized the futility of her postponement. She opened her someday box and chose to live its contents now. As June inhabited the feeling of her desires fulfilled, life began to reorganize around her new stance. Opportunities appeared not because she had finally earned them, but because she had stopped pushing them into an imaginary future. Her transformation came not from new action, but from new occupancy. She simply moved into the space she had kept reserved for later. This reveals a fundamental truth. Immediacy is not impulsiveness, but spiritual discipline. To choose fulfillment now, regardless of circumstances, requires more mastery than endless preparation. The kingdom responds not to your readiness, but to your residence, where you choose to dwell in consciousness. Ancient practice of present occupancy. Find a quiet space and close your eyes. Identify one thing you've been postponing. be it joy, abundance, love, or purpose. Now, instead of planning how to achieve it, simply allow yourself to occupy it fully in this moment. Feel its presence as your current reality, not a future possibility. Hold this state for several minutes, letting any thoughts of when or how float away. This is not visualization but vibration. You are tuning yourself to immediate acceptance rather than eternal preparation. Practice this daily until postponement dissolves into presence. Chapter 20. A Warning to the Powerful. In an ancient city lived a merchant named Leonardine, renowned for her fierce determination. Each morning she would stand before her mirror, reciting affirmations with such intensity that veins would rise on her temples. "I command wealth to flow to me," she would declare through gritted teeth. "I demand the universe bend to my will." Having learned of universal laws, Leonardine treated them as weapons to conquer rather than rivers to flow with. She visualized her desires with white-knuckled focus, attempting to force reality into submission through sheer mental strength. When others spoke of allowing, she spoke of seizing. When they suggested patience, she insisted on immediate manifestation. Yet the more Leonardine tried to dominate the universal forces, the more they seemed to slip through her fingers. Her business deals began to crumble. Relationships grew strained. The very abundance she sought to command seemed to retreat from her grasp. Still, she pushed harder, believing her failure was simply due to insufficient force of will. The truth of manifestation lies not in domination, but in harmonious alignment. The universal laws are not tools to be wielded, but currents to be joined. Like a river that cannot be grasped more tightly but only flowed with. These forces respond to resonance rather than resistance. In a distant valley lived a farmer named Oscar, who discovered this truth through an unexpected lesson. His fields had grown barren, and no amount of demanding the soil to yield had produced results. One morning, exhausted from his struggles, he simply sat in his field and surrendered his demands. As he relaxed his grip on outcomes, he began to notice subtle signs he had missed before. The direction of the wind, the patterns of the rain, the wisdom encoded in the land itself. Oscar learned to work with these natural rhythms rather than impose his will upon them. He planted according to the season's whispers rather than his rigid plans. He nurtured rather than forced, invited rather than demanded. Gradually, his fields came alive again, producing more abundantly than when he had tried to command them. The difference between these approaches reveals a fundamental truth. Power flows through alignment, not domination. When you attempt to bend universal laws to your will, you create resistance that blocks their natural operation. True mastery comes not from controlling these forces, but from moving in harmony with them. Sacred practice, the restoration of flow. Find a quiet space and close your eyes. Bring to mind something you have been trying to force into being. Feel the tension this forcing has created in your body and mind. Now, consciously release this tension, allowing your desires to float freely rather than being gripped. Notice how this shift from pushing to allowing changes your inner state. Practice this release daily until your relationship with creation transforms from domination to dance. Chapter 21. When the magic stays after the music ends. In a village among ancient hills lived Howardetta, known for her unwavering presence. While others rode waves of seasonal enthusiasm and subsequent despair, she maintained a steady radiance that puzzled those around her. The villagers noticed that whether in summer's heat or winter's chill, her generosity, joy, and expectation remained constant, like a lamp that burns regardless of external light. The universal law that orchestrates creation speaks not through sporadic bursts, but through sustained resonance. When you learn to maintain your creative frequency independent of circumstance, you enter a realm where manifestation becomes natural breath rather than conscious effort. This mastery reveals itself not in moments of dramatic transformation, but in the quiet persistence of aligned being. Think of a master musician who no longer needs to check if their instrument is in tune. They simply know. Similarly, one who has integrated the creative law exists in perpetual harmony with universal forces. The season's collective surge becomes unnecessary when you have become the source of the very state others borrow briefly. Yet this achievement asks more of you than temporary elevation. It demands the courage to sustain your frequency when the world offers no external support. It requires you to generate light when darkness prevails, to maintain warmth when others grow cold, to preserve belief when doubt becomes fashionable. In a distant mountain monastery lived Calvin, who had transcended the need for seasonal reminders. Visitors would arrive bearing news of festivals and celebrations, yet Calvin's response remained unchanged. "The light you seek to kindle once a year," he would say, "burns eternally within." Those who spent time in his presence noticed their own inner flame growing stronger, more stable, less dependent on external spark. What Calvin embodied was not detachment from joy, but liberation from its external triggers. He had discovered that the power attributed to special dates or sacred locations resided within consciousness itself. His example reveals that mastery lies not in the ability to rise occasionally, but in the strength to maintain altitude regardless of atmospheric pressure. Sacred practice. Find a quiet space and close your eyes. Breathe deeply, connecting with the eternal flame of creation within. Feel its warmth, its constant presence. Now imagine moving through different scenarios, moments of celebration, periods of solitude, times of challenge. Notice how this inner light remains steady, unaffected by external conditions. Practice maintaining this state for increasingly longer periods until it becomes your natural way of being. This is not an exercise in resistance, but in remembrance of your true creative nature. If you enjoyed this audiobook, I created a free ebook version for you. You can download it using the link in the pinned comment. Conclusion. Through these chapters, a veiled truth has emerged from beneath centuries of celebration and custom. The law you now recognize was never hidden. It stood in plain sight, waiting for eyes ready to perceive it. Like a familiar melody suddenly heard with new understanding, its presence transforms everything while changing nothing. You have uncovered what the wise have always known, that Christmas was not designed as a season to observe, but as a gateway to enter. A threshold where humanity's collective spirit aligns with universal law, creating an opening through which reality reshapes itself according to belief. Yet this knowledge, once glimpsed, cannot be unseen. You now carry within you the very frequency that others unconsciously seek through ornament and ritual. Your presence alone will subtly alter the creative current around you, not through declaration or instruction, but through silent embodiment. In the faces of strangers during December, you will recognize those who also understand, those who maintain the state beneath the celebration. They need no explanation, for they too have discovered that Christmas was never meant to be contained within dates or defined by customs. The law continues its quiet work through all who align with it, asking nothing but acknowledgement of what was always true. You have not learned something new, but remembered something ancient. The path ahead requires no further instruction, for you have become what you sought to understand. Let this understanding settle gently into your consciousness. Christmas was never meant to be celebrated, explained, or confined. It was meant to be embodied, and through you, it now moves unbound by season or circumstance, touching all it encounters with the same sacred knowing that now lives within you.
If you enjoyed this exclusive audiobook, I handpicked this next book which will change your life.